Not gonna lie, I bought it because of the cover. In fact, in a lot of cases, I definitely judged a book by its cover. Hello Starlets, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the best version of yourself and live your dreams. So if you want to be an Everyday Starlet, be sure you hit that subscribe button. Today I wanted to talk to you about books. In particular, I want to share with you the books that changed my life. Since so many people are home right now and I see a lot of people online looking for things to do, I thought, you know what, picking up a life-changing book and reading it could be just what someone needs right now. So I thought I would share with you some of the books that changed my life. There's a lot of books that I love. I actually am a big book fan. That may surprise some people because of my hair color. I don't know. I mean, I'm really very literary. I read. Sometimes I sit down and read a whole magazine cover to cover. If you know what show that line is from, leave it in the comments below. Bonus if you know the episode. Fair warning, all of these books are nonfiction. So I have them in front of me, that's why I keep looking down. But yeah, all these books are nonfiction. I do have some fiction books that I like, but I'm really more of a nonfiction girl. So just my preference, just what I like. I love my nonfiction. So if you want to see the books that changed my life and that could potentially change your life, then just keep watching. Okay, just a note that I feel like personally, I don't know, I like when books are really sort of well loved. They look like they've been taken care of by me. I'm not a huge fan of buying old books. I have done that. I don't know, I'm not a big fan of used books just because I'm kind of a germaphobe. I was before and now I'm really a germaphobe. But I really love when I see books in my collection that I know I've read so much and I've referenced back to, that they start to show some wear on them, because I just feel like it gives them character. It makes them feel really, I don't know, loved and special. So I want to share with you, this is probably my favorite book of all time. I am obsessed with this book. Not gonna lie, I bought it because of the cover. In fact, in a lot of cases, I definitely judged a book by its cover, and for most of these books. But yeah, I actually think I saw this promoted in, I want to say, In Style magazine back in the day when I used to like legit be obsessed with magazines. And I don't know, I just like the cover, the pink, the design, the word bombshell. I was just sort of like, all right, I gotta check this book out. And I don't think I've put it down since then. This book is just, I mean, it's an easy read. I mean, you could probably actually read this book in one day. But it's all about all of the classic bombshells of our time. Marilyn Monroe, Mae West, Brigitte Bardot, Jean Harlow. I mean, it's just got everything. The illustrations in it are just so beautifully done, and just everything about this book is, I don't know, when I hold this book, I just feel like it's a blueprint for my life. And it's actually kind of a weird thing, because I don't know if this book specifically changed my life in the instant that I got it, but reading it over time and how I always felt like I wanted to live this bombshell life that it's described in this book. And I just always felt like I fell short, and it wasn't until I started reading one of the other books that I'll talk about later on, and I started looking at gratitude and the things in my life that were going well. It was when I opened my eyes and realized that so many things in this book that I wanted my life to be like have actually come true almost on their own. And you know, without me really thinking about it, it's just sort of, sometimes I'll pick this up and I'll just be like, oh my god, that's what I wanted my life to be like, and that's what my life is now, even though it doesn't look the way that I imagined it to, if that makes any sense. I know that's getting really like out there, but it's just amazing how much this book has just changed my life. And I don't actually know if it's still in print. I hope it is. I see it every once in a while, but I'm almost thinking about getting another copy just in case this one actually completely falls apart, because I love it so much. But if you love old Hollywood starlets, which I imagine if you're here on my channel you probably do as much as I do, then I highly recommend this book because it's cute. I mean, you don't necessarily have to take it completely literally. You don't have to necessarily take it seriously because it's meant to be cute and fun, but this book has just sort of like helped me. It's helped me shape my life in so many different ways at so many different times. So I have to, I can't do a list of books that changed my life without mentioning this book. The next book I want to mention is also another one that I judged by its cover, and that is Burlesque, The Art of the Tease by Dita Von Teese. And I'm gonna be honest, I remember finding this book. I was actually living in the Boston area at the time, and I used to go to a Barnes & Noble that was near my house. And I used to go there and just sort of wander around sometimes and just look at books, and just pre-Amazon days, or Amazon probably existed, but like it was before just everybody just went online to order stuff. So I would just go into a bookstore and wander around, and I remember seeing this book and seeing this cover just like on the bottom shelf of a display, and of course the colors in the picture and everything just like drew me in, and I picked it up and I started flipping through the pages, and I didn't even really know who Dita Von Teese was at that time. I think at the time I remember hearing that she was married to Marilyn Manson, but I didn't really have much concept for Burlesque or who she was, and I just picked this up and I flipped through it, and again, you can also tell by the corners of this book, this is so well loved. I have probably read this book over and over and over again. It's about burlesque on this side, and then it's actually on the other side of the book. It's actually a fetish book, which I won't talk about too much because I don't want to get demonetized, but I haven't read the fetish part as much, but I have gone through and read it, and it is very interesting. And I think even if you're not, I honestly think even if you're not a fetish person, I still think that you could find the fetish part interesting. I'm obviously here for the glamour, but that's just me. I'm actually like massaging the book as we speak. But so much about this book, I mean, it's a quick, easy read. It's fun. You know, it does talk about burlesque, but I found inspiration from it for a lot of different areas of my life when I pick it up. And also the fact that I picked up this book because it introduced me to Dita Von Teese, and I feel like she's been such an inspiration for me in my life, even though I've never met her. She inspires me in the way that she lives in her glamour, and you know, obviously I'm not like a Dita clone. I don't look like her, but I just have always, I don't know, I've been drawn to her spirit and her love of glamour, and a lot of other books that I love, definitely one other that I'm going to mention here, but a lot of other books that I've read about Hollywood biographies and autobiographies and things like that, I have discovered because of, you know, books that she recommends. Usually almost anything that Dita recommends, if I give it a try, I'm gonna like it. And so I feel like even though I don't know her, she's sort of opened my eyes to so many different, you know, books, and there are some movies in here that some I've obviously heard of because I'm a big fan of, you know, old movies and Marilyn Monroe, but there were definitely some movies that she mentioned that I had never seen that are now some of my favorite movies, and I kind of feel like through picking up this book randomly at a bookstore just because I liked the cover, it sort of opened up my world to so many other things that I may not have been exposed to had I get it exposed to burlesque. You know how it works. But yeah, I just feel like I've discovered so many things in my life that I may not have actually ever experienced had I not picked up this book. It may not be your thing, but I think I would like to encourage you to, I mean, definitely get the book, but I would like to encourage you to, I think it's important sometimes to just pick up a book that you think inspires you, that interests you. Maybe judge it by its cover, why not? And just, you know, pick up a book and read it, and you just never know where it can take you. Yeah, this book is definitely one of my most loved. I want to give a shout out to Dita's other book, Your Beauty Mark, which I do love this book. I don't necessarily think I would call it life-changing. I remember hearing that she was coming out with a beauty book for so many years, and because I think it took her longer than she expected to come out with the book, and I waited and waited and waited, and I do love this book. I mean, I don't think it changed my life because I think at this point I was such a big Dita fan that I already knew a lot of the stuff in this book, but I do truly love this book, and I would recommend it for anybody who you know, maybe especially if you're just starting to dabble in glamour. I think this is a great book for beauty advice in particular, but just sort of overall life advice. So I do really, really love this book. Okay, so as a single girl, I have read a lot of relationship advice books, and some that were good, some that were bad. I kind of feel like, you know, there's always some kind of self-help book out there to, you know, I don't know, to help single women figure out their way. I could probably do a whole video just on relationship advice books that I've read and which ones I like and which ones I don't. But I wanted to mention one that truly changed my life in a specific way, and that is the book He's Just Not That Into You. And I know that we've all heard of this book, It's been around for a while. It kind of has like a cult following. Honestly, the reason I bought this book, obviously it was super hyped up when it came out, but the guy who wrote it, who I don't know how to pronounce his name, Greg, I don't know how you pronounce his name, but everything will be in the description box. He was or is still, I'm not sure if he still is, but at the time he was a stand-up comedian, and he was also, I think, a writer or consultant for Sex and the City. And I was doing stand-up comedy at the time, and I remember thinking to myself when I heard that there was a male stand-up comedian who wrote a relationship advice book, I was like, wow, I'm surrounded by male stand-up comedians all the time, and I don't know any of them that should be giving relationship advice. So I was very curious to see what he would say. Here's the thing about this book, because I think the biggest criticism that I hear about this book is that the stuff in it is super obvious. I agree. A lot of the stuff in this book should be super obvious. Here's the thing. If you read this book when you were not in a relationship, or you were not obsessed with a guy, or you were not, you know, right in the midst of relationship drama, when you're just single and living your life, I mean, it does seem obvious. Like, all the tips, all the advice, everything seems like, yep, this is common knowledge. Why would anybody need this book? Which is kind of how I felt when I read it the first time. I had a situation, and this is when this book actually changed my life, is I'd read the book. It was just sort of sitting in my pile of books, and this is when I had an apartment in Boston, and I was, doing stand-up, and I had been through a really, really bad relationship. One of those relationships that just destroys you. And it had been a couple years, actually, since our breakup, which had, it was one of those breakups that had just really, like, broken me. And I was starting to pick up the pieces. I was starting to try to get my life back on track. And the guy who hurt me, my ex, came back into my life. And I mean, he was kind of always around because we knew a lot of the same people, but he came back into my life and tried to get me back. And I'm not the type of person who goes back and forth in relationships. I'm usually like, when it's done, it's done. Like, I don't flip-flop. It takes me a while for me to, like, be over, but when I'm over, I'm over. Him coming back was, I certainly was not open to just jumping back into something with this person, but I have to admit that there was a slight feeling of satisfaction in the fact that somebody who had hurt me so much was now coming back. So I kind of entertained the idea and told him that we could be friends, and tried to keep him at somewhat of a distance, and he kind of kept persisting and trying to manipulate the situation. And then I remember one night, we're getting very personal here, but I remember one night we were at like a mutual friends event that they were having, and he was starting to do everything right. It felt like things were going well, and I was starting to think that, we weren't there together as a couple, but, he had made sure that I was gonna go, and I felt like I was starting to feel like maybe my walls were coming down. And he blew me off at the party to talk to another woman for like an hour, and then finally came back over to me. And I remember looking him in the eye, and I remember saying to him, "You made a fool of me once, you're not doing it a second time." And I walked away. And I remember walking away. I left. The party was kind of almost over and stuff, and I left, and I remember leaving and walking back to my car, and I kept waiting to hear him come after me, and he never did. And I went home, and I remember I logged on to my Facebook, because Facebook was the main social media at that time. He had updated his status that said, "I'm finally free." And I remember thinking, free from what? Like, I was the one who, and I just felt like I don't think I'd ever felt lower in my life. And I went to my bedroom, and I sunk into this depression, and then I looked over and I saw this book, and I opened it up, and I just went to, if I can find it. This isn't the original book. I actually repurchased this. I had the hard copy originally because I bought it when it first came out, and then that book kind of disappeared, and then I repurchased it in the paperback. I actually just literally went through the table of contents. I didn't even reread the book. And every single one Like, he's just not that into you if he's not asking you out. He's just not that into you if he's not calling you. He's just not into you if he's not dating you, if he's breaking up with you, if he's, you know, disappeared on you. Every single one that I was going through, I was like, oh my God, every single one of these things applies to this guy. And I'm sitting here crying over him. And it was that moment of revelation that allowed me to actually start letting it go. And I had technically already let him go because I hadn't fully let him back in my life. Like, he was renting space in my mind for free, for sure. But like, he wasn't in my life. Like, I still had boundaries up. But it allowed me to start letting him go in other ways. And now when I hear the song that Taylor Swift has about, like, I forgot that you existed. Have you heard that song? That there are moments when I'm reminded that he's a person, that he exists, just because I'll hear about him from a mutual friend or something like that, and I'm like, wow. I didn't even remember that he was a thing. And I think it was because of this book that I started to heal. And that's why, I mean, I know that was a really long roundabout story, but I hope that there are other women out there who are watching this who can relate to that. Is that, you know, yes, this book is so obvious when you're not in a relationship or you're not obsessed with a guy, but I feel like when you're in that moment, you don't always see things clearly. And when you have someone that is telling you one thing but they're acting a different way, and you're like, I don't know where to believe, and your emotions are caught up in it. I think this book for me has been very grounding. It's been very like, yes, it's very obvious and it's very reality, but sometimes you need that reality check. I recommend that every woman have this book. You don't even need to read it most of the time. Maybe read it once or whatever, but just have it there to remind you when you get caught up with a guy. I hope that this book grounds you and gets you to a better headspace like it did for me. Okay, so this next book is, it's an odd choice because I haven't actually finished this book. I keep getting partway through it and then I get distracted with other things and I don't get all the way through it. But I can't tell you, like, I would not be sitting here right now talking to you had I not read this book. This is The Message of You by Judy Carter. Judy Carter is she's a stand-up comedian turned motivational speaker. She has a book called The Comedy Bible, which I read as a stand-up comedian. So I picked this book up on a whim because obviously I knew the author from her last book. And when she started talking about her transition from doing stand-up into doing motivational speaking, it just really spoke to me, and the frustrations that she had about comedy and her comedy career, and she was way more successful at doing stand-up than I was, you know, and just that feeling and why she chose to then transition into doing motivational speaking, it just really spoke to me because I was just like, oh my God, this is an opportunity where I could still perform, but I don't have to deal with all of the things in stand-up comedy that I'm finding frustrating and I'm finding to be not working for me. So I've started this book several times, and I think the point of this book is to find your message and what it is that you want to speak about as far as motivational speaking. And I think that's where I'm gonna be honest with you. I read this book and I started to think, like, what is my message and what do I want to talk about and what do I want? And I felt very lost. I felt like I really didn't know, and that's one of the reasons why I've never really finished this book, is because I always hit a certain point, and sometimes I get farther in the book than other times, but I get to a certain point and then I get like, okay, I have to figure this stuff out before I can finish the book. I know that's not really the way that you should do things, but that's just how my mind works. It's actually because of this, because I was like, all right, I need to figure out a way to find my message and find what I want to say to people. And then I started realizing that I really needed to figure out myself, because I think doing stand-up for so long and having to try to fit a mold of what a stand-up is, which, you know, I could talk a lot more about my stand-up career in a lot of different ways, but that's a whole other video if you want to hear about it. But it was because I needed to figure that out. That was the reason why I started my blog, everydaystarlet.com, and through that was the reason I then started this YouTube channel, and you know, which then grew to so many other things. And it's actually, I've picked this book up several times in my life, and I feel like it's picking this book up after the 100th time or something. That was how I really started to find myself on Instagram and create the motivational posts that I do on Instagram. And I don't think that I really don't think that any of that would have happened that way had I not picked up this book. For a book that I haven't actually finished and I haven't actually created a motivational speech, like it hasn't gotten me to the ultimate place that I wanted it to take me. But I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't have all of this stuff that I have right now, and I wouldn't even be talking to you right now, I don't think, had I not picked up this book. I cannot tell you how much this book has changed my life. Everything I have now, I feel like, is because this book inspired me to get to this place. Another book that might be a little surprising, and it surprised me because this book was not what I expected it to be, is Khloe Kardashian's Strong Looks Better Naked. I love this book. I've mentioned this book, I think, in a few other videos. And honestly, Khloe wrote this book when she went through like her original sort of like body transformation when she first started losing weight, like before she had her daughter and everything. And, you know, she'd just gone through her breakup with Lamar. And when she wrote this, I kind of was like, okay, this is going to be a health and fitness book. And, you know, was like, all right, whatever, I'll check it out. Why not? Again, I was drawn in by the cover because it's very pretty. And yes, this book has some great, you know, fitness advice. Khloe basically explains her journey as to how she really started to get into health and fitness, and she talks a little bit about, you know, her healthy eating and things like that. So there is health and fitness advice in this book that I think is very relatable. And I think even though I know she's a Kardashian and I know she's, you know, kind of lives this sort of unattainable life, that I do fully believe that a lot of the tips that she gives here are very attainable for many people. You know, if you are looking for a, you know, health and fitness advice book, definitely think this could be a good one for you to pick up. But she also talks so much more in here about so many other things, and she opens up a lot about the process of going through a divorce, and you know, this is a very motivational book. And I think I was at a point when I sort of read this book where my marriage was falling apart, and I really felt connected to this book when I read it. You know, Khloe used her workouts and everything to really as her therapy to help her get through a point in her life that she felt was so difficult. And I have done that as well. And I think that has really helped me. And I think going along on that journey and also reading about it at the same time, I'm so glad that I picked up this book because I felt so connected to it when I read it. So I especially feel like if you're someone who, especially if you're going through a breakup or a really rough time, and we're all kind of going through some tough times right now, and you really kind of need something to help you sort of like physically and mentally with your health, I highly recommend reading this book. I don't think you would have to necessarily be a Kardashian fan in order to like this book. I mean, I like them, but you know, I really related to it on so many levels, and I think it's a very relatable book for a lot of people. So I would definitely recommend this. This one's a whole other level of life-changing, and I have mentioned this in another video. I think I mentioned this in my video about my divorce and getting through a divorce. I heard about this book watching Jordan Cheyenne's YouTube channel, and I'd heard about The Secret. I'd heard about the law of attraction. I'd heard about that kind of stuff, but I kind of knew, I think, the gist of it. But I didn't really know, I hadn't really looked into it too much other than just the surface of what you hear. And she recommended picking up The Magic. I don't think I can express fully how much this book truly changed my life. And I know it's gonna sound like, okay, she drank the Kool-Aid. This book is all about gratitude. It's all about gratitude and thinking positively. And I used to be the queen of being negative, and I don't think I was ever grateful for anything, or, you know, not that I never was, but I didn't live my life in gratitude. I was miserable, I was depressed, I was just, like, again, I wore my pessimism like a badge of honor. I mean, I was, like, proud of how miserable I was at times. I picked up this book, and I actually started, this is actually, like, I think it's great because it's a 28-day, I think. Double check, yeah, 28-day book of all kinds of exercises that you can do, and each day there's a different exercise that helps you like get in touch with your gratitude. And I did this actually basically just after my marriage ended. If you don't know much about my story, is I got married several years ago, and a year into my marriage, which was not going well, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I basically was caring for her while she was battling breast cancer. And she's a breast cancer survivor, which I'm very grateful for. But just before her treatments were done, my husband left, and our marriage ended essentially via text message. And then he asked for a divorce via email. So needless to say, my life hit kind of a low point. But I think too, I was in that combination of, I was so glad that I still had my mother, and I was like in that place of like, I wanted to celebrate life, but then my life was taking a very different turn. And when I picked up this book, I think I was at a point of just absolutely needing something, and I needed help, because I just felt like if I didn't turn to look for help, I didn't know if I would make it through. I can't tell you how much this book helped me get through that time in my life. I mean, I don't even know if I would be sitting here like I know with the other book I said I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I don't know if I would still be here on this earth if it was not for this book. Oh my god, I was not gonna cry. I feel like this book just, it changed my whole thinking, it changed my whole perspective. And that's not to say that I don't have days where I get down on myself, and that I don't have days where I get frustrated or overwhelmed, or that I don't always fully live in gratitude. But my whole life, my whole perspective on things is just so much different, and it's so much better. And there were so many positive things that came into my life that I don't think would have been here. It was actually after reading this book that my Instagram started to grow, which I honestly, I know that sounds minor, and it sounds like, okay, you're going through all this stuff, but I was going through, you know, all of these things in my personal life, but yet my health was never better. My body was going through changes, and I was actually, you know, in my late 30s at this point, and I was actually achieving fitness goals that I hadn't been able to achieve in my 20s. And I started growing my Instagram, and I started connecting with people on social media, and that's when my social media started to grow. And I just don't believe that any of those things would have happened had I not learned to live in gratitude and be grateful for the things that I do have. And so many good things in my life expanded. My mother is here, and she's healthy. Like, I'm divorced now, and I'm not in a relationship that was so destructive to me. Like, there's so many good things that happened, that even in the depths of feeling completely lost and miserable, this book helped me get out of. And I don't think that I could possibly recommend this book enough for anybody, especially if you're going through a tough time. Again, I really don't think I would be sitting here if it hadn't been for this, because I really think that my pessimism and my depression and my anxiety, I think, would have just eaten me alive after what I've been through the last few years. And I know it's gonna sound really like ironic, but I'm so unbelievably grateful that this book came into my life, because I just don't think that I would have anything else had I not found this book. And the thing about this stuff is that if you try it, there's no negative side. Like, there's no negative side to living in gratitude. It's just, if it doesn't work, you've lost nothing, you know? So I highly recommend anybody pick up this book. It will truly change your life. It really will. So we have our last book, and after one that was that serious, I wanted to throw in one that was a little bit more fun. This is In Intimate Detail. This book changed my life in a very special way, because I had just started to dabble a little bit in posting more on Instagram as far as showing my body. By that I mean, before that I was literally just showing like my makeup from like my neck up and stuff. Like, I was dabbling in occasionally, I'd be in a swimsuit or things like that, and you know, I started to maybe post, you know, a bra I wanted to promote that I really liked or something. And it wasn't until I picked up this book, which I actually heard about from Dita Von Teese, that I picked up this book all about lingerie. And again, it's kind of like the first one I showed you, the Bombshell Manual of Style. Like, the illustrations in here are just absolutely beautiful, and I just, like, it's a beautifully written book, and it will give you all kinds of great information about lingerie. And I follow Cora Harrington on Instagram, and she's a beautiful, beautiful Instagram, and I learned so much about this, and this really got me. It's strange that I feel like I'm sort of known on Instagram as being like the lingerie girl or a lingerie girl, because I really didn't know much about lingerie when I first started posting, and then picking up this book, I got to learn so much more about the lingerie world and you know, fit and brands and things like that. And this book really just kicked off that obsession, and I sort of became this collector and connoisseur of lingerie. And this book helped me so much to like find that in myself, which is a part of myself that I don't even think that I even knew existed until I started on this journey. And so yeah, I mean, I think anybody could benefit from reading this book. Anybody who wears lingerie could benefit from reading this book. But I think it kind of goes to show that, you know, like sometimes just picking up a random book that you think you might be interested in, like I did with Dita's book, and then because of that book I discovered Dita and I started learning more about her, and then she recommends, you know, other books like this one, and I find this, and I end up basically having this whole world open to me that I don't think would have ever been open to me had I not, you know, just picked up Dita's book one day, you know, at a random Barnes & Noble. So I just think you never know where life is going to take you, and that I feel like books are things that can help you learn, and they can help expand your world, and you can see things from different perspectives. And that's one of the reasons why I love books and I love reading, and I feel like stay in school, kids. So yeah, those were the books that changed my life. And I mean, I have a lot of other books that I love. I have a whole collection of books that I'm obsessed with, but I'm sure this video is long as it is, and I just really want to share with you the ones that I felt like really truly had a huge effect and really just changed my life and made me see things differently. So if you have a favorite book, I want to hear about it. Leave a comment in the comment section below. I want to know what books changed your life. I will leave all these books in the description box below, so that you know, if you're looking for books to read right now while you're in, you know, quarantine self-isolation right now, you know, you can maybe pick some of these up and order them, which would be amazing. And if you do end up reading any of these books, or you have read any of these books and you want to tell me, you know, if they changed your life or what your experience is or whether you like them or not, let me know. Comment in the comment section below. I love to hear from you. I'd love to get a discussion going about books. I think that'd be great, especially glamour books, because, you know, what's better than books and glamour? So if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up. Share it with your friends, anyone who you think would be interested. If you want to be an everyday starlet, be sure you hit that subscribe button. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy in this time. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.